It's the Committee on Conference with Senate institutions and House institutions and corrections. It is May 20th, 2026. This is our second meeting of the day. Probably won't be our last meeting of the day. So we have Ledge Counsel Michael O'Grady is here, and we're going to ask him to join us at the table and get some information on that would be relevant to our conversation about the lease with the Vermont Huts. And we have not heard from you yet.
No. So this is Michael O'Grady, Ledge Counsel. I was in the House with the department when the language was worked out that was in H.952 as it passed the House, because similar to what I think I'm hearing here, the House committee was looking for more structure regarding what was going to be authorized for the lease for the structure of the Little River State Park. And working with the department and their team, we came up, the House committee came up with the language that is in the House passed bill. It's largely based on the foundation of Administrative Bulletin 3.5, which is the requirements for contracts and grants that are set by the Secretary of Administration in something called Administrative Bulletin 3.5. And there are requirements, there are recommendations, there are instructions for how the state entity enters into a contract with pretty much anyone, including minor grants of relatively small amounts of money. So you will see what that detail is in H.952 as it passed the House. It's in section 13, and specifically the detail is on page 18. You'll see it's a 20-year term with an option for 2 additional 10-year terms. A fee or fee formula, which is not unusual for state lands, especially when you don't really know what revenue will be produced from the land as of yet. And then conditions on the use of the structure. The Vermont Hut Associations shall secure insurance and be subject to indemnification according to the state standard terms and conditions. Provisions for termination of the lease, requirements for operation and maintenance of the lease structure, how any conflict shall be resolved, and that the contract shall be executed in accordance with the state standard terms and conditions. This has been, in my opinion, a pretty good instruction for the department to go forward with the lease. I understand that there are questions. I don't know exactly what they are.
Okay. So when I looked at this list, to me it's a very comprehensive list of the items that need to be discussed, but not of any parameters or guidelines or minimum or maximum amount. So
are you talking about the fee, minimum, maximum?
The fee I'm talking about, but now that I realize that the Vermont, and I just want to say, I'll probably say it every time that we talk about this project, it's a great project. It's a really great project. And it's a project on multiple sites of the state. So is this lease only going to be for, this says Little River State Park, so I presume that that's the case, right?
Well, one of the things that it has to do has to define the boundaries of the land and structure to be leased.
But it's only one project, which is for Vermont Huts to rehab this Goodell building that's falling apart.
Right.
They would then move the building. They would move that. So
They're going to move.
Yes.
yes, and they're gonna rehab it and they're gonna then operate operations out of that building. So if we don't do something about it, it's gonna fall apart.
Yeah, and again, I don't doubt that the building needs repair, and I don't doubt that this is a good.
So it's only one
Project.
site,
But the grant that they received is multiple sites.
but this is one,
Okay, but it's one of this.
but the lease only pertains to one site.
I understand. But the requirements of their funding would pertain to all of the sites. And some of the other sites, I just think it's good to know these things. It's part of a larger project. The Velomont, what did you all talk about that? Or have you all seen this? I think we sent it to you just today, so maybe it's.
So is it a federal grant to Vermont Huts?
Yeah,
Right, and so they have options to use the money for different projects,
sure.
but they are still subject to conditions for every grant or every lease that they enter into, every use of the grant funds that they enter into.
Right. No, I understand that.
So I don't know how you can contemplate all the rest of the use of the grants in this lease.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting that we look at this and just be aware of it.
We
Because
could
that's-
look at it, but it doesn't pertain to the capital bill and doesn't pertain to the lease to Vermont Huts with Forest and Parks for the Goodell House. Our understanding is for some of the grant money, for those federal grant monies, they are required to have a lease
Sure.
in order to receive the money for Vermont Huts. For Vermont Huts to receive the money, they need to have a lease. We want to help this along for that particular amount of money for Vermont Huts for the Goodell House.
So,
All the other stuff is not in our jurisdiction.
right, so there's other things that you probably don't even see in that, and that includes NEPA review, National
Sure.
Environmental Policy.
Yeah.
Because the award of the grant is technically a major federal action, which triggers NEPA, which requires the conduct of initially an environmental assessment. And if you trigger certain things, and the environmental assessment turns into an environmental impact statement, I don't think you're gonna get to an environmental impact statement here. But in order for them to do an environmental assessment, they need to have surety that there is going to be a lease and effectively what the terms of that lease are. So this gives whomever's doing the NEPA analysis, this gives them some surety to restart that process and go forward with the environmental assessment.
Okay, so let me ask specific questions on the language that's
Sure.
here. Because yes, I'm aware of NEPA, and I'm not concerned with that because the state wouldn't
They're gonna
need
get
to
approval.
like work on. So term of 20 years with two 10-year term or extensions. So is that a regular time?
It's not
And
unusual. It's not unique.
What are what
Like, what are some other examples?
You could even ask BGS because they're gonna try to leases a lot, right? With renewable clauses.
Yeah, I mean, we do 10 with renewals, you know, it depends on what we're leasing, but
20.
we do 20
Who lease out our property or when we're leasing?
when we're leasing.
When we're leasing longer term, there are caps on lease out.
Yeah.
well, these are parks, so maybe parks has amount.
So fish and wildlife lands, infrastructure on fish and wildlife lands, infrastructure on parks and parks lands. 10, 20 years is not unusual.
Okay, okay. So that's a fee. I've seen fees that are based on percentages of revenue.
Right, this is
What
formula.
do you there is a formula, so what is? the formula?
Well, this is contemplating a formula.
This is content,
Yes, it says the fee or fee formula to be used to compensate the state.
right? So what is typical? What, I've seen
Is that-
fees of 2%, I've seen fees of 10%.
Well, that's 10% of what? I mean, that's.
Right, net revenue or gross revenue. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that you can do this.
Right, I don't think they know exactly what the fee revenue or any revenue is going to be from this lease as of yet, so that's partly what needs to be negotiated.
Okay. I guess it seems to me that the legislature has I think part of our responsibility is to make sure that we're getting a good deal. That the state is getting an appropriate amount of revenue from leases, from leasing of public lands, because it's public land. We're certainly getting benefit in the structure being renovated.
So that's basically what I'm gonna say. You're getting free, the state is getting free rehabilitation of structure, free movement of that structure, free management and maintenance of that structure for 20 years. When it would not have been used and it would not have been part of any recreational use on state lands.
Right,
And then you're getting that for free.
right, with federal dollars, so
Wow.
it's public dollars.
Okay. And I don't know if there is a revenue source yet that you can say you need a percentage of that, or you need to be paid a certain amount in compensation for that. I turn to the department. Is there a revenue source that you're aware of that, like, you could say we want 2% of that?
For the record, my name is Rebecca Washburn. I'm the Director of Lands and Recreation for Forest Parks and Rec. When we've spoken with VT Huts, who's our partner on this project, they have a similar structure that brings in between $25,000 and $35,000 a year. So we know we're talking about negotiating an amount of money that is appropriate considering our respective role associated with a relatively small dollar amount. So we've been focusing more on how we align the public benefits of this project with park operations and other management considerations. And have placed a lot less emphasis on negotiating fees, knowing that this isn't going to be a significant investment source for the partner or for the department.
Okay, that's helpful. All right, good, that's helpful. So, the other, right, so even if it's 10%, it's minimal.
I think we gotta balance this, because right now, what's happening with that property, and what's happening with that house right now?
Nothing.
Is it costing the state something now?
Only anxiety over the potential loss of the historic structure. We tarp it every fall to make sure that we're protecting it to the extent we can. We cross our fingers and we go up there every spring and hope that it hasn't fallen down, and thus far it hasn't, but we have a long-range management plan that's been in place for the unit of land that this falls within. And 20 years ago, we were contemplating how do we refurbish the structure in a way that will allow it to add value and recreation to the public. And for 20 years, we haven't been able to find a solution until VT Huts came along with a willingness to pursue federal funding and the ability to be awarded that funding and a willingness to manage the project on our behalf, and are not able to move forward and take advantage of this field season until we are able to address the lease, which is essentially a requirement of the Housing and Urban Development Grant.
Which it should be, yeah. Okay, that's great. I haven't heard that yet.
So right now, there's nothing happening.
Right, and I have seen the photos. It's a very decrepit building, and it's a very important building.
So it's really nice, it could be costing us money, because it could be vandalized, you could use it, there's no revenues coming in from it at all. And if it was vandalized or there was a problem up there, it would cost us some money to deal with it.
Mhm.
So now we've got an entity that is willing to upfront the dollars, take care of the building, rehab it, and actually have an operation there. So you've got supervised folks, you've got folks in there supervising the use of that area, which now you don't have anybody.
Mhm.
And we don't have to pay for it. We could get some revenue from a fee, lease payment. So that's what we gotta balance. Am I off base on that?
You're right, spot on.
Right, so, and as I said in the beginning, I think it's a great project. And it's helpful to learn some of these details. We haven't had any of those details until now. So conditions on the use of the structure, so would be basically, they could lease it.
Right, or some of these Vermont huts are overnight, some accommodations.
Right, and the boundaries, obviously, that would probably be the most minimal boundaries that the state could that they would need to use for
Yeah,
that.
I think it will probably depend on once the building is moved and the site is constructed, you're probably gonna look at some, parameters, boundaries, across mitigate any liability that the state would have, put that on the insurance agreement.
Right, insurance is critical, termination, operation and maintenance. So that, I'm sure we have general language about, being accountable to the public, so it's not limited to certain people or some, like Vermont Huts. If they had, memberships or something, it's not limited to anyone.
Oh, for the
The
use of it?
requirement,
For,
well, the, yeah, for the operation and maintenance, I'm just,
so Vermont Huts is open to the public. So you,
okay, so that, I would expect that's generally in our leases.
and it's probably going to be a condition of the lease. as well.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. All right, so, this is good to know and, well, I don't want to speculate, but I'll, this is good. This is
Yeah.
helpful.
So what we'd like to offer on this one is instead of negotiating a long-term lease, we want to go back to our language, which is enter into a long-term lease. And to address the chair's concern that Forest and Parks, Vermont Huts could could give a report to the two chairs, like on or before August 15th, while they're in the middle of working on the lease. And then prior to final sign off of the lease, they can also report back to the two chairs. So that the chair can understand what has been agreed to in the lease, but we say go back to our language and to a long-term lease instead of negotiating.
But then the language would include the August.
Right,
Yeah.
and have language that there would be Forest and Parks and Vermont Huts on or before August 15th, because they'd be about midway negotiating and putting the lease together. Report back to the two chairs. That gives an indication of where they are, if there's any problems, it's going to free sailing. And then before they actually sign on the dotted line on the lease, they would just report to the two chairs.
Yeah. And then they'll also give us the final lease.
After they've signed,
Yes.
but we would enter into a long-term lease, not negotiate.
Yes,
So we
I
come
think,
back to our
I
language.
think that. It's fine. Good. Okay. That is fine. We can check that one off.
And Michael can work with John.
I can do this, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, good. That was a good use of your time.
okay.
Thank you.
Do you want me to stay or not?
Oh, thank you. For something more exciting.
Thank you.
So before we get into, we do have on spreadsheets, I just moved some language questions. So,
Oh, of the bill as a.
no, your bill. For the State House expansion, second floor fires design, put in 25,000. For what? And what is this gonna get us? What's the 25,000 going to get us?
It's designed and it's egress, not just fire escape.
Right, but what is the
It's-
25,000?
It's to have professional look at options for a second floor egress. And that was, my understanding is that was part of the initial proposal. But then it was scrapped.
So did you talk to BTS about this?
We heard-
Sergeant at Arms in terms 4 Freeman, French Freeman.
Yes,
Did they indicate if you do an egress and how it's done, what the increase to the project cost would be?
there were significant costs. But there was one specific way that they were looking at doing the, egress. And we wanted them to look at other possibilities, and they said that they could look at other possibilities. That's what the architect said.
And they could look at it within the current 1.3.
They could look at it with the 25,000.
With the 25,000. And what was the egress that had been looked at? You said they looked at one.
Well, I think you were part of that group, right? I mean, that was the working group.
One legislative.
Yes, yes.
Well, one piece was talking about outside.
That's the one that I'm aware of. That was, or I believe, look, why don't you finish what you're saying? It sounds like the one that.
Was it outside? You gotta deal with the historic part of the building.
Oh, yeah.
But
Well-
the one that I was also aware of, to do a reconfiguration of some committee rooms upstairs in the house side. And you get rid of the cloakroom. Those were the plans that I was.
Okay, so there's multiple ones. I don't know the multiple ones. The ones we heard about. It wasn't committee rooms, I think. I thought in the house, it was the room upstairs above us. Yes, yes,
That's what I.
yeah.
Does that mean, egress passage?
Just through the cloakroom.
Yeah.
To an outside.
Yeah. Which, depending on the configuration of the enclosure with the new entry, how that would be.
So that's what you're hoping to get.
No, I'm hoping I get something different and something more palatable.
With the 25,000, you hope you get.
Well, no, not, it wouldn't be a concept. It would be
Just trying to figure this
the
out.
plan was, the second floor egress was deleted from the plan, is my understanding. And that alarms me because safety is important. And the whole project is based on safety.
So is your thinking that there would be an exit from the cloakroom to a fire escape? Is that your thinking?
I think that's what they've already been thinking. There might be a better way to do it. This is, we're not at the point of having other options. They had been told to not provide other options or not. There's no funding for them to provide other options. And they hadn't been asked to provide other options.
The Chittenden Regional Facility, the language on page 3 of your amendment. We understand there needs to be work there. It's not a problem. What is meant by what other facilities serving the incarcerated women's population, and what type of maintenance renovations would be included in those other facilities? What are the other facilities in that type of?
I'm gonna ask. We talked with BJS about that, and I'm gonna ask the
So,
commissioner.
One of only for the record, Commissioner of Buildings and General Services. The, working with DOC and looking at this, the other amendment, so part of the money is, being proposed to help accommodate the overcrowding. And so there may have to be some renovations done and we haven't worked all of this out yet. Representative Emmons, but working with corrections, they're saying, well, maybe we would renovate some space within the women's facility and create more beds and do something with the space. Could be temporary, could be long-term. The number one priority that this committee is talking about was to look at the bathroom facilities and to figure out how do we upgrade those and any other elements with any other items in that building that maybe have not been addressed. But DOC definitely wanted the ability for us to, if we had to create space in another facility to help with the overcrowding, then that could occur, or if they were gonna make. And they had given quite a few examples, but the focus was not to renovate for other purposes outside of the needs of the women's correctional facility, if that helps.
So if they get over, say, 180, speaking of corrections, she must have a bucket there. So say they're pushing 190 folks. Is the thinking that some of this money would go to renovate a wing and a male facility?
I think that anything's a possibility, yes. So they could, because the capacity of the facility, I believe is 180 or 185, women's correctional facility. So they're looking at creating appropriate space also for the individuals who are incarcerated at the women's facility. Because right now, and I don't know the appropriate terms, but I guess they're triple bunking or doing mats on the floor in the unit, right? And that's something that they want to address the best that they can.
So what would happen to those male folks in a male facility? Would that increase our out-of-state bed use?
I can't answer that.
And
No,
I would just say that at this point, there's nothing specific on the table, like no set plans. It was really just flexibility should the need arise that we need to think outside the box to address traffic issues.
And to build off what Emily just said, so to answer your question, is there a detailed plan that we would ship this particular male facility and ship this many out? That has not been discussed.
The only thing that is more set or desired is the bathrooms. That's a problem right now.
I haven't shared this with two members that just came into my mind. It might be worthwhile to indicate priority is showers and baths. Cat homes. And if there is a need for renovations of another facility, they need to come before Joint Justice.
Which would be in this summer.
Because 1 million isn't gonna cover much. Not gonna cover anything. I mean, to renovate, what would be involved in a male wing to renovate besides getting out the urinals?
And who says that that's necessary? I don't know.
That's what
I will tell you that we're working very closely. We did a field trip. Emily went on that. We use some of our major maintenance money, but it's not addressing big ticket items. And we've had some issues with the drains. I think you've all heard about, which we've addressed, and that really made my awareness go up. So we agree, we don't have to do every bathroom. But there are some bathrooms there, showers, tiles, toilets that need to be replaced. When we were talking about this in Senate institutions, we had a ballpark number of 600,000 to 800,000. And we were pushing more close to the 800, but we have not done any further analysis of this because this did come in on the Senate side. But our awareness became heightened when we were in here working on the capital bill.
Well, I just think one other thing that was brought out is, well, we all know we need to build a new facility. That is going to happen in the next year or two. And it's really trying to deal with some problems in the existing facility to bridge that time period is how it was put, I believe.
Yeah.
It's not opposed, I mean, that makes sense. Just we need more clarity in terms of other facilities and what that really means.
If I may, it says other facilities for incarcerated women could be sent to a hospital or something, but we intended correctional facilities and only our correctional facilities. And only for the purpose of serving the incarcerated women's population, which it doesn't expressly say that. So that's what we had. Because I think it was the commissioner who was here, I can't
Yes.
recall who it was.
Yeah.
But just said, well, it's possible that we might want to use another thing in the male facility, and then that would require whatever sort of renovations or maintenance or there. So that was the only intent of that additional one.
So we could just clarify, or other correctional facilities. And we could make it a priority, that the priorities for the bathroom and showers in the current facility. And if they do, we have to use another correctional facility, they need to come before joint justice oversight. Does that make sense?
Well, just to go back to what you're saying, Senator, so this came from testimony from Commissioner Murad about capacity at the women's facility, if you're concerned that it would go over.
It wasn't capacity, it was more, and I can't speak for him, but my understanding of the conversation was, well, we could be looking at what some of the renovations might be for the women's facility. And it might make more sense to have the women housed somewhere else for any particular period. So for instance, if it's right before the new women's facility is going to be put online, do not don't mind into CRCF. Something along those lines, nothing specific.
Yeah, and I just would like to share with the committee, we were in talking about future new
Yeah.
women's correctional facility, and we sort of rolled into a discussion about the existing condition and the capacity and what was going on at the women's, and then the committee just sort of continued to take it from there. And I think the bathrooms are the priority. And I believe I'm listening to the Commissioner Murad's testimony, having the ability to create better space without a new facility. So because there was a lot of conversation on the overcrowding and how many women they were trying to put into the facility that it didn't support, and trying to come up with a solution of having sort of that, I'm going to call it flex space. That may be the wrong space, because their numbers do, as you well know, members of the House, the numbers on the incarcerated women, it will be at 185, then it might go up to 195, then it might come down. So they're looking for better accommodations as well.
Sorry, hearing Commissioner Manoli, I do stand corrected. There was conversation about it being over capacity, but
Yeah.
at least from my standpoint, that wasn't the main purpose of having that to, I guess, discourage
Yeah.
incarceration.
Thanks.
Well, it's gonna be a while before we even get a shovel on the ground. It'll be at this rate at least 5 years before we get a shovel on the ground, 45 years living in the facility.
But I'm also not aware that there's any extra space in any of the men's facilities, so that's necessarily necessitate moving
push
some
out
part
of
of that down to the facility.
And we've housed women in health facilities before.
Sure.
It's Jennifer.
Right, but then we also wanted to just start thinking creatively too, and have some funding, and you're right, this isn't much.
So we can at least clarify the language that it's for other correctional facilities, priorities for bathrooms and showers.
To accommodate but you are doing it to address the women's population, correct?
Right.
Yes,
Yes.
And then if you need to go to other correctional facilities for the overcrowding, that's what in for the overcrowding. It should come before joint justice. I mean, not for our civil, but you gotta keep joint justice and going to the
and I would hope, even if there isn't a plan to use this funding, that joint justice would have this have corrections in. I mean, that's a normal process.
And Madam, Representative Emmons, can I just clarification? So what I think I just heard you say is that the funding can be used for the women's correctional facility. We don't have to go to the justice oversight for the bathrooms and doing
It's
some of
the
that.
overcrowding.
If we're gonna propose using any of the funds to create additional bed, I call it bed space, it may be the wrong term, I apologize. Or living space in another facility for the women, you want to see that, you want to see an overview of what that's gonna look like.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I've got to wordsmith it. Okay. Um. The next piece I want to get into, we're going through language right now. In terms of. Yeah. There's what to have. Am I missing anything for language? Let's look at the questions. Because the others have on it.
Oh, the one time, yeah, right,
Yeah, was not.
yeah.
Right there, yes. So we do have a new spreadsheet where we're moving some money around. And it does get complicated. But why not do that?
Started complicated.
It's complicated. This hasn't changed, right?
Okay, parents over that, yeah.
So this is your proposal.
Yeah.
Right.
The
It's
numbers.
the same number that we just saw, right?
It may be a little bit different than what I showed you this group.
So it's complicated, but. So we talked this morning about the 3-acre parcel. And how that's connected to the Newport Correctional Facility. So this reflects what we've really agreed with you folks. And in working with BGS on the 3-acre parcel, what I went through this morning.
Mm-hmm.
We're zeroing out the 1 million in cash. And then we need about 500,000 of bonded in terms to make their 3-acre parcel. We rounded it up a little bit further, like 200,000 and 300,000 from what they really needed. They need about 4.7. Yeah, 4.5 they need about 4.7. We're saying give them a full 5 million, so they have some buffer, which would also include the stormwater ponds moving forward.
Okay.
And by doing that, we've agreed to what you have put in for the boiler. We have agreed to that amount. You put in 700,000 on top of our million. So those two are connected and we've made an agreement to your proposal.
So that's down at
Yeah.
a different section.
Does that line come in on sure? The boulder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Then St. J, we are really working hard.
Wait, I'm sorry. So 29. Did we?
We agreed with yours.
All right, that's
You put in
okay. Got it. Got it. Yeah, we got it. Okay.
Because it's all tied in with the 3 acres, so we're making sure 3 acres whole.
Yeah.
They can do those 3 projects plus the stormwater ponds.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, we've agreed to the board. We're really focusing on trying to make the St. Johnsbury door replacement work. So we're gonna put money from the 3-acre parcel. There's 600,000 left. We're gonna put some of that money into the St. J to see if we can bring them up as much as possible, because it's a $10 million to $12 million project. Okay, that's out of our control. That just came in. We're doing the best we can for that. So you're seeing some numbers change. We do have a question. I'm gonna backtrack a little bit to line 12. We did have a question on that egress. So we zeroed out that 25,000. So that's what we're putting on the table here. Going down to Recovery House, we did hear testimony from them. We had a lot of concerns about using these dollars, bonded dollars, to do baseboard cover replacements, develop more office space, replace kitchen cabinets, replace temporary stairs, we felt quite strongly that we should not open up the capital bill for these individual projects. We worked really, really hard over the years that we don't have these individual little projects. That's why we've moved away from that.
Can you tell me again what those, 'cause we didn't hear about those items.
It's a memorandum from them. There was some roofing, there was renovation of a bathroom, baseboard cover replacement, vinyl siding, office space, a generator,
Yes, generators what we heard.
replace kitchen cabinets. Okay, we want to use bonded dollars to replace kitchen cabinets. Replace temporary stairs and reinforce the porch footing. So our committee looked at this, we had testimony, extensive conversations, and we did not. So we're going back to our decision.
Okay, so we'll talk about that more. We talked about it a lot.
So if you flip the page for historic grants, historic barns, we want to come back with that our case. Because we're very clear that we increased the amount for all of them last year because there was concern. So we increased the amount. We are not picking and choosing these grants. That was the agreements that were moving with that when we established these grants. They would all receive the same amount of money and they all have more requests than what they every single one of them.
Can you explain the agreement that was made?
That was way back, money, 06, 05, 06, 07, that this, they're all equal. And we've been very, very clear, and the folks that administer these grants are very clear. We're not picking one over the other to fund more. These are all grant programs that Vermonters can access. It's not politically driven. In the past, all these little grants that were offered were all politically driven based on who was sitting at this table and who had the majority of the Senate and who had the majority of the House.
The specific grants were probably.
They weren't even in existence because it was individual little projects that would come forward based on who, what party and who was sitting at the table.
And that's not what
And
we're.
we moved away from that and we established these grants. We established cultural facilities, recreational, human services, regional economic, ag fairs. And we included the historic preservation and historic barns. The barns go to privates, all the others go to municipals and nonprofits. And we were very clear that this grant proposal would not be politically driven, as these individual little projects had been for about 8 years. It was really destructive to the capital bill. And it was destructive to this body because it depended who was sitting where and what party was in control.
And that can self-confidence committees from top. They were even more to these things.
So,
Okay,
so we're proposing.
okay, I don't see it that way, but okay.
We're proposing to go back to our 300,000 for those two. In terms of the tech support, it's really difficult to see bonded dollars going for tech support. Number one, we don't usually pay for that. Number two, in talking to A&R, it will cost close to almost 40 to 50,000 to administer this for 100,000. So we are saying to go back to zero for that. So that's where we are on money for that. That's our proposal at this point. And one last piece. One last piece is for the stormwater. We're going to agree to your language for stormwater utility in exchange for selling 110 State Street. Those two are connected. We will accept the stormwater language in exchange for selling 110 State Street. That's what we're putting on.
Okay, interesting. So we'll. I'd like to get more information from A&R was that a recent conversation that you had? Can they,
Neil,
okay,
what's his name?
um,
I'm gonna say Kramer.
yeah,
I wanna say
Yeah.
Kramer, but I don't.
yeah. All right, so that's where you are. Okay. All right, well, we'll discuss it.
I have one question.
Sure.
So the additional, 500,000 for the, Wi-Fi.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I forgot, I'm
The
sorry.
additional money.
So the 1 million cash, we're saying, make the difference. And always use it. And then we wanna bring back, for Wi-Fi installation and, we may need language to tell them what to do. It's not effective.
Yeah, the 500,000, where did that?
The 1
number-
million cash for the 3 acre.
So we had $250,000 for correctional Wi-Fi. Because we've heard from DOC that in terms of what they could use for until next year was around $250,000. The additional 500,000, where does that?
So-
One,
Representative Squirrel and I had a Zoom meeting with Denise.
okay,
And what was mentioned to us was they can get through the plan by October.
okay,
Okay. And then come back next year with a request for money to start installing or putting it in. And we kept saying, what could you do from November to June? Why are you waiting until the next capital? We want to push them along.
so the
Okay.
idea is,
And also with this Wi-Fi installation, or you need BGS table as well. So we need language for that. This BGS needs to be at the table because they're gonna be opening up walls. The BGS needs to know what's going on.
do you have language to
We will.
sort of move that, please?
We want to push them along. And I think we all agree our
Yeah.
correctional facilities need an update Wi-Fi. And we've been trying to get ADS in over the last couple of days to talk to us. They've been unavailable. They were unavailable to talk to us when we put the first initial money in. We want to get this project going. We understand there's a lot of security issues. We're not opposed to that. We understand that. But come on, get off the dime and do it. Because we've got staff in there that are paper and pencil.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And they're
no, we agree on
And they're
that.
working 16 hours a day. We've got folks who are living there 24/7 as inmates that are struggling with this tablets, whether we like it or not. We've got security issues, we've got privacy issues. We've got to do this. And we're also looking, at the victim notification system. We're looking at inmate records. So there's a lot of levels there, which I understand. But we talked about this last year.
Yeah, if I may.
Can't go anywhere.
Our committee is absolutely on board with all of that. We did not believe that anything more than 250,000 could be used. I'm understanding what you're saying. I think, I'm going to speak from you now, the language that's proposed to attach to this.
So we can work on
Yeah,
that. You can put up some language too. We'll do the,
Yeah.
I think we
It would be
need
helpful
to
to
work
kind
on
of
language.
get it, but yeah. You can
Because
look
we
that
need to
up.
push this.
I can't speak for the rest of us.
Yeah, we need to push this. And maybe the other thing we can also do is have DOC and ADS and BGS check in and joint oversight every month. Do this. Yeah, we gotta push it. I'm not willing to wait until we're by 28.
Yeah, we wanted to push that.
We're not willing, our committee. Well, that's where we are.
Okay. So hopefully we'll be able to meet again today.
Yep.
So when would you be?
Whatever.
Okay, all right, so. That's it. Okay, so.
So,
When are we back on the floor? Anybody know? I think it's.
It's 3:30.
I think it's 3:30. We're on the floor. Did we do anything on the floor before we were on there? One, it looked like they came right off.
How much time do we need for?
Yeah.
An hour or so.
Oh, now.
Yeah.
You wanna try 3:30?
Yeah, we just go.
Wanna try 3:30? Because we don't have to be on the floor, the bill, S-193, we don't end up, well, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, but we need language and we need another spreadsheet. Or maybe, we'll see. Okay, so let's aim for 3:30. We'll let you know.
Okay.